My name is Zoe, and at 29 years old, I stood outside my mother's weather department door, holding a gift box that represented everything I'd worked for. The weight of it pressed against my palms as years of her calling me a failure echoed in my mind. This moment, her 60th birthday, was supposed to change everything between us. Before I share what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please take a moment to like and subscribe if stories about family and redemption touch your heart, because what unfolded that day still leaves me breathless. The Cincinnati suburb where I grew up wasn't much to look at, but to my mother, Margaret, it had once been everything. She'd been a promising nurse at 25, married to my father with dreams of filling our modest three-bedroom house with children and laughter. Then he left when I was 7, taking not just himself but our savings account, leaving behind bills and a woman who never quite recovered. "You're just like your father," she'd tell me whenever I shared my dreams. "Head full of impossible ideas that'll leave you broke and alone." Those words followed me through Jefferson High School, where I discovered something that made sense to me in ways people never did: coding. The computer lab became my sanctuary, lines of code more comforting than any conversation at home. When I won the state coding competition my junior year, racing home with the trophy and $5,000 scholarship check, I found my mother in the kitchen staring at overdue bills. "Look, Mom, I won." I thrust the trophy toward her, my face flushed with pride. She barely glanced up. "Computers are a man's world, Zoe. Be realistic. Your cousin Jennifer is studying for her MCATs. Now that's a real career." Jennifer. Always Jennifer. The daughter my mother wished she had, who visited every Sunday with updates about medical school applications, while I spent weekends teaching myself Python and Java in my bedroom. My mother would light up when Jennifer walked through the door, her whole posture changing from the slumped defeat she wore around me. College brought its own battles. Ohio State University accepted me into their computer science program, but financial aid only covered tuition. I juggled 3 jobs: campus tech support during days, restaurant shifts at night, freelance coding on weekends. My mother refused to help, saying she couldn't enable my fantasy career path. "There's an opening at the hospital for a receptionist," she'd say during our monthly phone calls. "Stable income, good benefits." Jennifer's mother helped her get an internship there. By senior year, I was surviving on 4 hours of sleep and instant ramen, but I'd built my first app, a platform connecting elderly patients with virtual health consultations. My professor called it brilliant. My mother called it a waste of time when I showed her the prototype during Christmas break. "Nobody's going to trust their health to a computer screen," she said, not even looking at the demo. "You should focus on finding a real job before graduation." The real blow came after college. At 22, I launched my first startup with 2 classmates. We worked 18-hour days in a converted garage, living on energy drinks and determination. For 6 months, we pitched to every investor who would listen. We made it to the final round of a major tech accelerator, only to lose funding when our main competitor got acquired by Google. The failure hit hard, but not as hard as my mother's reaction when I moved back home temporarily. "I told you this would happen," she said, helping me carry boxes to my childhood room. "All that time wasted when you could have been building a real career. Jennifer just got her residency placement. Her mother is so proud." I lasted 3 weeks in that house. Every morning brought a new job listing she'd printed from Indeed, all entry-level positions that had nothing to do with technology. Every dinner became a lecture about my poor life choices. The breaking point came when I overheard her on the phone with Aunt Linda. "Zoe, oh, she's doing temp work right now. Still figuring things out. Not everyone can be successful like Jennifer." Temp work. That's how she described the 60 hours a week I was putting into freelance projects to save money for my next venture. I moved out that night, crashing on a friend's couch in Columbus. For 2 years, I disappeared into my work building my second startup, an AI-powered healthcare platform that could predict patient complications before symptoms appeared. The technology was complex, analyzing thousands of data points to identify patterns human doctors might miss. The garage I rented was barely heated. Winter nights I'd code wearing fingerless gloves, my breath visible in the cold air. My diet consisted of dollar menu items and whatever free food I could find at tech meetups. My mother's weekly emails went unanswered, each one containing links to job postings with subject lines like Customer Service Representative, Full Benefits. 47 investors rejected me. 47 presentations where men in suits questioned whether a 24-year-old woman could really understand healthcare technology. The 48th pitch changed everything. Sandra Chen, one of the few female venture capitalists in Ohio, sat across from me in a Cleveland coffee shop. She didn't interrupt once during my 30-minute presentation. When I finished, she leaned back and smiled. My mother died from complications that your algorithm would have caught 3 days earlier, she said. I'm in for $2 million. The next 3 years blurred together. We hired carefully building a team of 50 brilliant minds who believed in our vision. Our platform launched in 10 hospitals, then 50, then 200. We helped over 100,000 patients, preventing thousands of complications, saving lives that statistics said should have been lost. The acquisition offer came on a Tuesday morning. MedTech giant Nexus Health wanted to buy us for $50 million. I stared at the email for an hour, the numbers not seeming real. My first thought wasn't about the money or the vindication. It was about my mother. Her 60th birthday was 3 months away. This was my chance to finally show her that I wasn't a failure, that everything she'd dismissed had led to something extraordinary. But I wanted to do more than just tell her about my success. I wanted to give her something that would change her life the way she'd changed mine, even if that change had come through pain. 3 months before my mother's birthday, I sat in my Columbus office staring at her Facebook page. She rarely posted, but when she did, the photos revealed a life growing smaller. The apartment she'd moved to after selling the house looked cramped, outdated. Her smile in pictures seemed forced, not reaching her eyes that had grown duller with each passing year. Then I found a photo from 15 years ago. Our old house in Cincinnati, the one she'd been forced to sell during the divorce. In the picture, she stood in the garden she'd lovingly tended, surrounded by roses she'd grown from seeds. The caption read, "Missing Simpler Times." That house had been her dream, the place where she'd planned to raise a large family, host holiday dinners, grow old surrounded by grandchildren. Losing it had broken something in her that never quite healed. A quick search revealed the impossible: the house was for sale. My hands shook as I dialed the realtor. The current owners were relocating to Florida, eager to sell quickly. They wanted $350,000, reasonable for the neighborhood. I offered $400,000 for a swift, clean sale. I want to restore it exactly as it was in 2008, I told the contractor I hired. I have photos of every room. The renovation consumed my weekends for 2 months. I drove the 3 hours to Cincinnati every Friday night, overseeing every detail. The kitchen had been modernized with stainless steel and granite, but I remembered my mother crying over House Beautiful magazines, dreaming of warm wood cabinets and butcher block counters. We ripped everything out, rebuilding her dream from magazine clippings I'd saved. Finding the exact wallpaper pattern from her bedroom took 3 weeks of searching vintage suppliers. The rose garden required a specialist who could identify heritage varieties from old photos. I tracked down the china cabinet she'd sold, buying it back from an antique dealer in Dayton for triple what she'd gotten for it. "You're doing too much," my brother James warned during one of our rare calls. "She's not going to react the way you think." James had escaped to Seattle after high school, building his own life, far from our mother's criticism. He visited once a year at Christmas, maintaining careful emotional distance. "She's changed," I insisted, though I hadn't spoken to her in 6 months. "She'll understand when she sees it." The master bedroom got a complete overhaul with accessibility features, grab bars that looked like elegant towel racks, a walk-in shower with a built-in seat, wider doorways that didn't look medical but would accommodate mobility aids if needed. The craft room occupied what had been my father's office, fitted with a sewing station, quilting frame, and organization systems for the hobbies she'd abandoned when money got tight. I commissioned a local artist to restore family photos from before the divorce, when happiness lived in our house instead of disappointment. Each room got carefully chosen pieces: her parents' wedding portrait in the hallway, pictures of baby James and me in the nursery she'd never gotten to fill with more children, her nursing school graduation photo in the den. The garden took the most work. I hired a landscape architect who specialized in historical restoration, showing him dozens of photos from my mother's Facebook archives. We planted the exact varieties of roses she'd grown: Queen Elizabeth, Mr. Lincoln, Peace. The vegetable garden in the back matched the layout from her sketches I'd found in an old notebook: raised beds arranged for easy access as she aged. Setting up the financial structure took meetings with lawyers and accountants. A trust would own the house, paying all taxes, insurance, and maintenance in perpetuity. She'd never have to worry about losing it again, never have to choose between home repairs and medical bills. The presentation box cost more than most people's engagement rings: handcrafted mahogany with silver hinges lined in purple velvet, her favorite color. Inside, I arranged the keys on a silk cushion surrounded by photos of the restoration. The letter took me 15 drafts. Mom, you gave me life, and even when your words hurt, they pushed me to become who I am. This house holds the dreams you had to abandon. I'm giving them back to you, along with my love that never went away, even when I had to distance myself to survive. Your daughter, Zoe. Amy. My best friend since college found me crying over draft number 12. Maybe start smaller, she suggested gently. Take her to dinner first, feel out her mood. But I couldn't do small with my mother. Our relationship had always been extremes: crushing disappointment or desperate hope for approval. This gift would finally tip the scales toward healing. I practiced my presentation speech dozens of times, standing in my empty apartment at midnight, holding the box and imagining her face when she understood. Would she cry? Would she finally say the words I'd waited 29 years to hear: "I'm proud of you"? The flight to Cincinnati on her birthday felt both endless and too quick. I checked into a Hampton Inn near her apartment, unable to eat, rehearsing my words one final time. When I called to confirm dinner, her voice sounded tired, older. Don't make it complicated, Zoe. I'm not up for one of your productions. Just family dinner, Mom. I promise. Fine, 6 o'clock. Don't be late like usual. I hadn't been late to anything in years, but in her mind I was still the scattered college student who'd missed Sunday dinners for coding projects. Time had stopped for her the day she'd decided I was a failure. Maybe tonight it would finally start moving again. The narrow stairwell to my mother's second-floor apartment smelled like old carpet and whatever the neighbors were cooking. I stood at her door at exactly 5:55, holding the mahogany box with both hands, feeling the weight of $50 million worth of success that she knew nothing about. She opened the door before I could knock, and my heart sank immediately. Her hair, once carefully styled for any family gathering, hung limp around her face. The apartment behind her looked darker than I remembered, cramped with too much furniture from the old house that didn't fit these smaller rooms. You're actually on time, she said, her eyes dropping to my outfit. Still dressing like a college student, I see. Didn't you bring anything appropriate? Jennifer always dresses so professionally. I wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that cost more than her monthly rent. But she saw what she'd always seen: disappointment in human form. The living room was already full. Aunt Linda sat on the worn love seat with Uncle Robert, their faces brightening when they saw me. My cousins Mark and Susan waved from the dinner table, which had been extended with a card table to fit everyone. The same mismatched chairs from every family gathering since the divorce. Zoe, Aunt Linda stood to hug me. How wonderful to see you. How's the computer thing going? Before I could answer, my mother cut in. She's between projects right now. You know how unstable that industry is. Between projects. I'd just sold my company for $50 million, and she was telling people I was between projects. Actually, let's not talk about work tonight, my mother interrupted, turning toward the kitchen. Jennifer should be here any minute with her husband. Of course Jennifer was coming. The golden child, the success story, the daughter my mother wished she'd had instead of me. I sat in my assigned seat, the wobbly chair nobody else wanted, and placed the mahogany box beside my plate. Jennifer arrived 20 minutes later in a rush of apologies and perfume, her husband David carrying their 6-month-old daughter. My mother's entire demeanor transformed. Her face lit up, her posture straightened, years seemed to fall away as she reached for the baby. "There's my precious granddaughter, oh Jennifer. She gets more beautiful every day, just like her brilliant mother." Dinner was torture disguised as celebration. Every conversation circled back to Jennifer's achievements. Her thriving medical practice, the new house they'd bought in Indian Hill, the medical journal that had published her research. My mother had printed the article, passing it around the table like a holy relic. "Imagine my daughter published in the American Journal of Medicine." She beamed, though Jennifer tried to downplay it. "It was just a small study, Aunt Margaret." "Nonsense. You're changing lives, dear. Real important work." I pushed food around my plate, the weight of the mahogany box beside me growing heavier. When Uncle Robert asked about my work, my mother answered before I could. "Zoe's still figuring things out. Not everyone finds their calling as quickly as Jennifer." "Mom," I started, my voice tight. "I actually wanted to tell everyone." "After presents," she said firmly. "Jennifer brought something special." The gift exchange began with typical fanfare. Aunt Linda gave a spa certificate. Uncle Robert contributed a gift card. The cousins brought flowers and wine. Jennifer presented a diamond bracelet that made my mother gasp. "Oh, honey, this is too much." "You deserve it, Aunt Margaret, for everything you've done for our family." Finally, no other gifts remained. I lifted the mahogany box with trembling hands. "Mom, this is for you." She took it suspiciously, as if it might contain disappointment in physical form. The room fell silent as she opened the silver hinges, revealing the keys nestled on purple velvet surrounded by photos of the restored house. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, then something I'd never seen before. Pure rage. "What is this supposed to be?" Her voice was deadly quiet. "Mom, I bought the house. Our old house. I restored everything exactly how you wanted it. The rose garden, your dream kitchen, everything from the magazines you loved. It's yours, free and clear forever." The silence stretched like a held breath. Then she exploded. "You think you can buy my love?" She stood the box, shaking in her hands. "After abandoning me for years, chasing your stupid computer dreams while I struggled alone. Mom, that's not... This is exactly like you, Zoe. Always trying to show off to prove you're better than everyone else. You think throwing money at me will make up for the embarrassment, for having to explain to everyone why my daughter can't hold a real job. I can hold a job. I just sold my company." More lies, more fantasy. She threw the box across the room. Keys scattered across the carpet, photos fluttering like dying birds. "You're still that failure who thinks money solves everything. Jennifer would never insult me like this." Jennifer sat frozen, her baby starting to cry. David quickly took the child outside. Uncle Robert began gathering the scattered keys while Aunt Linda tried to calm my mother. "Margaret, please let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. She thinks I'm some charity case who needs her pity." My mother pointed at me, her finger shaking. "I don't need anything from you, Zoe. I never have. Get out of my house." "Mom, please let me explain." "Get out." I knelt to gather the keys, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip them. The family watched in horrified silence as I collected the scattered photos, each one a piece of the dream I'd tried to give back to her. Nobody spoke as I left, my mother's voice following me down the stairs. 29 years old, and still playing pretend. When will you grow up?" The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in the narrow stairwell. I made it to my rental car before the tears came, violent sobs that shook my entire body. All those years of work, of proving myself, of becoming everything she said I couldn't be, and she still saw me as a failure. I sat in that rental car for an hour, engine off, staring at the mahogany box on the passenger seat. Some of the photos had torn when she'd thrown it, edges of dreams ripped apart by the force of her anger. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Probably family members trying to process what they'd witnessed, but I couldn't look. Finally, Amy's name appeared on the screen. I answered on the fifth ring. James called me, she said without preamble. He heard from your aunt. Zoe, are you okay? She threw it away. My voice sounded hollow, unfamiliar. $50 million of success, and she literally threw it in my face. Come home. Right now. Get on the next flight and come home. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Something in her reaction didn't fit. The rage had been real, but underneath it I'd seen something else. Fear. I need to fix this, I said. No, you need to protect yourself. She's toxic, Zoe. She's always been toxic. Instead of driving to the airport, I went to my hotel and opened my laptop. First, I called my real estate attorney. I need options for the Cincinnati property. I said voice all business now. Can we sell it quickly? The restoration adds significant value. We could list it tomorrow, probably have offers within a week. Do it. Next, I started building a portfolio of evidence. Not for my mother, but for myself. Proof that I wasn't the failure she'd painted me as. Screenshots of the acquisition announcement. The Forbes article featuring me in their 30 under 30 list. Patient testimonials from our platform. A letter from Nexus Health's CEO calling me one of the most innovative minds in healthcare technology. My brother James called while I was printing everything at the hotel business center. Mom's been telling everyone you're unemployed, he said without greeting. For 2 years, Zoe. Every family gathering she spins this narrative about you couch surfing, unable to hold down steady work. What? Jennifer just called me. She's mortified about what happened, but she wanted you to know the truth. Mom's been struggling financially for years. The apartment has black mold, the heating barely works. She's maxing out credit cards for medical bills, but tells everyone she's fine. The pieces clicked into place. The dim apartment, the worn furniture, the way she'd looked older, more fragile. She wasn't just angry about the gift. She was humiliated that I'd seen how far she'd fallen. Jennifer's been secretly buying her groceries, James continued, leaving gift cards in her mailbox so she doesn't have to admit she needs help. Pride. The same pride that had made her refuse my father's alimony payments. The same pride that kept her working 3 jobs rather than ask her parents for help. It was eating her alive from the inside. I found Jennifer's number in my phone, hesitating before calling. She answered immediately. Zoe, I'm so sorry about tonight. I had no idea about the house. Tell me the truth about her situation. Jennifer sighed. It's bad. She's living on Social Security and a tiny pension from her nursing days. The apartment is making her sick, but she can't afford to move. She won't let anyone help. When I offered to pay for repairs, she didn't speak to me for a month. But she loves you. You're the success story. No, Zoe. I'm the safe one. I followed the path she understood. You terrified her because you went into territory she couldn't navigate. Every time you succeeded in ways she couldn't comprehend, it reminded her of every dream she'd had to abandon. I hung up and stared at the stack of papers proving my success. She didn't need to see evidence of my achievements. She needed to see that I understood her. I rewrote the letter 15 times that night. Mom, I'm not a failure. I sold my healthcare technology company for $50 million. I've helped save thousands of lives. The Forbes article is real. The success is real. But I understand why you couldn't see it. You were too busy surviving to watch me thrive. You were protecting yourself the only way you knew how, just like I had to protect myself by staying away. The house is still yours if you want it. No strings, no conditions, no need to thank me or apologize or change. Just a daughter who finally has the means to give her mother what she deserves, even if that mother can't love her back the way she needs. I'm done trying to earn your approval, but I'm not done loving you. Zoe. I drove to her apartment at dawn, leaving the package outside her door, the letter, the articles, the bank statement showing the wire transfer, and a single key to the Cincinnati house. No mahogany box, no presentation, just truth. The text I sent was simple. The restoration isn't about proving anything. It's about giving you back what was taken. Look at the evidence when you're ready. Or don't. Your choice. Then I drove to Cincinnati to see the house one last time before the realtor listed it. Walking through those rooms I'd carefully restored, I understood something. I hadn't really done this for her. I'd done it for the child in me who still wanted her mother to see her, to value her, to love her for who she was, instead of who she'd failed to become. The roses in the garden were blooming despite the late season deep red and pink against the morning light. I picked one careful of the thorns and was walking back to my car when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Heavy breathing, then Aunt Linda's panicked voice. Zoe, your mother's in the hospital. She collapsed after reading your letter. The drive to Cincinnati General took 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. I ran through the emergency room doors, finding Aunt Linda in the waiting area, her face drawn with worry. She had a panic attack, she explained quickly. Started hyperventilating after reading everything you left. The neighbors called 911 when they heard her fall. She's stable, asking for you. The walk to room 314 felt like approaching an execution. Inside, my mother looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, lost in the hospital bed oxygen tube under her nose. Her eyes were closed, but tears had dried in tracks down her cheeks. Mom. Her eyes opened, focusing on me with difficulty. Zoe. I'm here. $50 million. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. The Forbes article. It's real? Everything's real, Mom. She turned her face away, fresh tears starting. I didn't know. I thought you were ashamed of me. That's why you stayed away. Why you never told me anything. I pulled the uncomfortable visitor's chair closer to her bed. You never wanted to hear it. No. She shook her head weakly. I couldn't bear to hear it. Every success you had reminded me of what I'd lost. Do you know what my father said when I had to leave nursing? I'd never heard this story. She'd barely talked about her parents, both dead before I was born. He called me a failure, said I'd wasted my education, disappointed the family. Sound familiar? She managed a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. I spent 30 years proving him wrong, only to turn into him the moment I became a mother. Mom, let me finish, please. She struggled to sit up slightly. When your father left, he didn't just take the money. He took my belief that I could do anything right. Every time you succeeded where I'd failed, it felt like the universe confirming what my father always said, that I wasn't enough. That's not true. I know that now. God. Zoe, you helped save 100,000 people. My daughter did that. Fresh tears came, but these seemed different. I've been so scared you'd end up like me, alone, bitter, scraping by. So I tried to push you toward safe choices, steady paths. Instead, I pushed you away. She reached for my hand with fingers that felt like bird bones. The house, she whispered. You really bought it. And restored it. Every detail from your magazines. The rose garden. The craft room you always wanted. Why? Because you're my mother. Because despite everything, I love you. Because I wanted you to have something beautiful again. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. I threw it at you. The keys, the photos. I threw your love back in your face. You were scared. I was cruel. Her voice broke completely. I've been cruel for years. Jennifer told me while we waited for the ambulance. How you built your first company in a freezing garage living on nothing. How investors dismissed you for being young and female. How you almost gave up so many times but didn't because you wanted to prove me wrong. That wasn't the only reason. But it was one of them. My cruelty drove you to greatness, but what kind of mother takes credit for that? She pulled my hand to her chest over her heart. I'm the failure, Zoe. I failed you every single day since your father left. I let my pain become yours. I let my father's voice come out of my mouth. I became everything I swore I'd never be. Mom, stop. The house has roses, she interrupted, desperate to change the subject from her shame. Queen Elizabeth, Mr. Lincoln, and peace. Just like before. You remembered. I remember everything, Mom. Every dream you had to give up. every sacrifice you made that I was too young to understand. You worked 3 jobs to keep us in that house as long as you could. You sold your engagement ring to buy me a computer for high school. You think I only remember the criticism, but I remember the love too. It just got buried under so much pain. A knock interrupted us. Jennifer stood in the doorway with a coffee carrier and a tentative smile. "Thought you both might need caffeine," she said, entering carefully. "How are you feeling, Aunt Margaret?" My mother looked between us, something shifting in her expression. "I need to tell you both something." She struggled to sit up straighter. "Jennifer, I've used you as a weapon against Zoe for years, made you into this perfect example of what she wasn't. That was cruel to both of you." Jennifer sat on the bed's edge. "I knew what you were doing. And you tried to tell me, didn't you? Every time you mentioned Zoe's accomplishments, I changed the subject. You weren't ready to hear it." My mother turned to me. "She's been my biggest defender, you know. Jennifer. Every family gathering, she'd try to tell people about your success. I'd shut her down every time." Jennifer nodded. "I printed every article about your company. Aunt Margaret wouldn't read them, but I kept them anyway. You're kind of my hero, Zoe. You had the courage to forge your own path. I just followed the safe route." "The safe route made you a doctor," I pointed out. "A doctor living the life my parents planned before I was born. You became something nobody could have imagined. That takes real courage." My mother was crying again, but silently now. "All these years I had 2 extraordinary daughters, and I was too broken to see it." "You're not broken, Mom. You're hurt. There's a difference." "The house," she said suddenly. "Tell me about the kitchen." So I did. For the next hour, I painted pictures with words of every room, every restoration choice, every detail pulled from her long-abandoned dreams. Her eyes lit up when I described the craft room, the sewing machine like the one she'd sold, the quilting frame she'd always wanted. "There's a trust that pays for everything," I explained. "Taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities. Forever. You'll never have to worry about losing it again. I don't deserve. It's not about deserving. It's about love. Complicated, painful, difficult love, but love nonetheless." The doctor came in, then explaining that she could go home tomorrow, but recommending follow-up care for anxiety. When he left, my mother grabbed my hand again. "I want to see it. The house. Will you take me?" "Of course." And then, "Would you tell me everything, every step of building your company, every victory I missed, every moment I should have celebrated with you?" "That could take a while." "I have time. Nothing but time." She paused, then added quietly, "I want to know my daughter. The real one, not the failure I invented to match my own self-hatred." The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for emotional revelations. I helped my mother into my rental car, noticing how carefully she moved, how her breathing stayed shallow, as if she couldn't quite believe she deserved full lungs of air. "I haven't been back to the neighborhood since I sold it," she admitted as we drove. "Couldn't bear to see another family in our home. It's been empty for 6 months. The previous owners relocated for work and it sat on the market, almost like it was waiting." "You don't believe in that stuff." "I believe in patterns. Sometimes the universe aligns in ways that look like fate but are really just favorable probability." She actually smiled. "There's my logical daughter. Your father was the dreamer. You got his ambition, but my practical streak. Dangerous combination." We pulled into the driveway of 4827 Maple Street, and my mother's breathing stopped entirely. The house looked exactly as it had in 2008, before the divorce, before everything fell apart. The cream siding with forest green shutters, the wraparound porch with the swing she'd spent summer evenings on, the red front door she'd painted herself when pregnant with me. "Oh, Zoe." The words came out broken, disbelieving. I helped her out of the car, supporting her weight as we walked up the pathway lined with her favorite hostas and daylilies. My hand shook as I unlocked the front door, stepping aside to let her enter first. She moved like she was walking through a dream, fingers trailing along walls, touching door frames, as if confirming they were real. The living room stopped her completely, her grandmother's rocking chair in the corner. the built-in bookshelves filled with the same titles she'd been forced to sell family photos covering the mantel. How did you find all this? Estate sales, online auctions, some helpful relatives who'd stored things. That chair was in an antique shop in Columbus. She sat in it carefully, running her hands along the worn armrests. My mother rocked me in this chair. I rocked you and James in it. The kitchen nearly broke her. Every detail from her accumulated magazine clippings had been brought to life. Warm maple cabinets, butcher block counters, the farmhouse sink she'd circled in catalogs, the vintage mint green KitchenAid mixer she'd always wanted. You even got the backsplash right, she whispered, touching the subway tiles she'd dreamed about. You kept very detailed dream boards, Mom. I found them in the garage when I was 16. She turned to me with such raw vulnerability that I had to look away. You kept track of my dreams while I was crushing yours. They weren't crushed, just redirected. Your doubt became my fuel. That's not how it should work between mothers and daughters. No, but it's how it worked for us. The garden made her cry properly. Despite the gray weather, the roses bloomed magnificently, their fragrance carrying on the damp air. She knelt beside the peace rose, touching its cream and pink petals with reverence. I planted this variety the day I found out I was pregnant with you. Said if it bloomed, the baby would be healthy. I didn't know that. There's so much you don't know. So much I never told you because I was too busy being disappointed in who you weren't to see who you were. She stood with difficulty. Show me the rest. The craft room rendered her speechless. The sewing machine quilting frame walls of organized supplies, pattern books, fabric bolts in every color she loved. A desk by the window overlooked the garden, perfect lighting for detailed work. I never told anyone I wanted this. You told the house. I found sketches in the attic, measurements and plans from before Dad left. The master bedroom was last. The accessibility features were subtle but essential grab bars that looked decorative. A shower seat that folded elegantly away wider doorways that just looked gracious rather than medical. You planned for me to grow old here. I planned for you to live here. Really live, not just survive. She sat on the bed, testing the mattress, looking around at the space that was both familiar and new. I can't accept this. It's already done. The trust is irrevocable. The house is yours whether you live here or not. Why irrevocable? Because I know you, Mom. Your pride would make you give it back the first time we fought. This way you can be mad at me from your dream kitchen instead of that moldy apartment. She actually laughed for the first time in years. You know me too well. I learned from the best. You taught me to be strategic, even if you didn't mean to. We spent the next 3 hours going through every room again slowly this time. I told her the story behind every restoration choice, every piece of furniture, tracked down every detail that brought her 2008 dreams into 2024 reality. She told me stories about the house I'd never heard, where James took his first steps, the bathroom, where she'd cried after Dad left the corner, where our Christmas tree always stood. I need to tell you something, she said as we sat at the kitchen table drinking tea from her grandmother's china I'd recovered. About why I've been so hard on you specifically. I waited. You're exactly who I wanted to be before life happened. Fearless, brilliant, unwilling to let anyone define your limits. When I looked at you, I saw every possibility I'd had to abandon, and it made me cruel. Mom, no, let me own this. I punished you for being what I couldn't be. Every success you achieved felt like a mockery of my failures. That's not your burden to carry. It never should have been. We all carry our parents' burdens whether they mean us to or not. But I weaponized mine. There's a difference between unavoidable inheritance and deliberate infliction. She reached across the table, taking my hands. I need to know about your company. Really know. Not the Forbes version, but the real story. So I told her everything. The 18-hour days, the rejections, the sexism, the moments of breakthrough, the team, we'd built, the lives we'd saved. She listened without interrupting, tears sliding silently down her face when I described living in the garage, pride blooming when I explained how our algorithm worked. You did all that before 30. I did it because you said I couldn't. No, she shook her head. You did it because you're extraordinary. My cruelty might have pushed you, but the brilliance was always yours. As the afternoon faded, she stood in the living room looking around at her restored dream. I want to host Thanksgiving here. The whole family. Will you come? Of course. And Christmas? And random Sundays. And any day you want to come home. She paused. This is your home too, Zoe. I want you to have a key, a room, a place here always. Mom, you don't have to. I want to. I want to be the mother I should have been. I know it's too late to undo the damage, but maybe it's not too late to build something new. I'd like that. One more thing. The $50 million. What are you doing with it? Investing most of it, starting another company, and I hesitated. I'm funding a scholarship for single mothers studying technology. What's it called? The Margaret Foundation. She stared at me. You named it after me. You were a single mother who sacrificed everything. Just because we had a complicated relationship doesn't erase that. The scholarship ensures other women won't have to choose between their dreams and their children's futures. This time when she cried, it was different. Cleaner somehow, like a dam breaking after decades of pressure. She pulled me into a hug that felt like the first real embrace since I was 7 years old. My brilliant, successful, generous daughter. How did I miss seeing you for so long? You were in pain. Pain makes us blind. You were in pain too, but you still saw me clearly enough to give me this. We stayed in that house until evening planning where furniture would go, what meals she'd cook in the dream kitchen, which roses to add to the garden next spring. For the first time in 22 years, my mother looked happy. Actually happy not performing happiness for relatives or forcing smiles for Facebook photos. 6 months later, I stood in the same kitchen watching my mother teach my cousin's daughter how to make pie crust from scratch. The house had transformed into what she'd always envisioned, a gathering place for family filled with cooking smells and laughter. Press gently, sweetie, she instructed, guiding small hands with flour-dusted fingers. The secret is keeping the butter cold. Through the window, the garden bloomed magnificently. She'd added her own touches, vegetables in raised beds, a greenhouse for starting seeds, a bench where she sat every morning with coffee, and called me to talk about everything and nothing. Our relationship had evolved slowly, carefully. We started with weekly video calls, where she'd ask about my new company, actually listening to my explanations about machine learning and data architecture. She'd started reading technology blogs to understand my world, while I learned about her nursing days, the procedures she'd pioneered, the lives she'd saved before injury ended her career. You were innovative too, I'd realized during one conversation. You developed that new protocol for pediatric IV placement. How did you know about that? I looked it up. It's still used in some hospitals. Mom, you were brilliant. You just had your brilliance stolen by circumstance. The family dynamics had shifted completely. At Thanksgiving, she'd stood at the head of the table and given a toast that silenced everyone. I spent years comparing my daughters, creating competition where there should have been celebration. Jennifer became a doctor despite my pressure. Zoe became a CEO despite my cruelty. I'm not responsible for their success. They succeeded in spite of me, not because of me. But I'm going to spend whatever years I have left being the mother they deserved from the beginning. Jennifer and I had grown closer, texting regularly, sharing the unique bond of having survived our mother's particular brand of damaged love. She'd started investing in my new company, wanting to be part of the journey this time. Your mom's on the news again, David called from the living room where he was watching the kids. We gathered around the television to see my mother being interviewed about the Margaret Foundation. She'd become its unofficial spokesperson, visiting community colleges to talk to single mothers about supporting their children's dreams. My daughter taught me that success isn't just about traditional paths, she told the reporter. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking risks. I spent years trying to force her into a safe box when what she needed was room to soar. That's beautiful, Mrs. Harrison. And your daughter's new company. It's going to revolutionize early disease detection. I don't understand all the technology, but I understand the impact. She's going to save lives, just like she saved mine. The reporter looked confused. Saved your life? Not literally, but she gave me back my dreams when I thought it was too late to dream. She taught me that failure isn't falling down. It's staying down. And she showed me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Later that evening, as family dispersed and dishes were done, my mother and I sat on the porch swing watching fireflies dance over her roses. "I've been thinking about writing a book," she said quietly. "About what? About us. About how fear disguised as love can destroy relationships. About how it's never too late to change the story. Would you tell the truth, all of it? Every ugly bit, every cruel word I said, every night you cried because of me, and every step of how we found our way back. That's brave, Mom. I learned from the best. My daughter who wouldn't give up on me even when I gave her every reason to. You're my mother. That's not something you give up on even when it hurts. I gave up on you, though. So many times. Wrote you off as a failure before you even had a chance to try. But I didn't believe you. Deep down, some part of me knew you were wrong. Where did that strength come from? I thought about it watching the fireflies. From you, actually. Not from your words, but from watching you survive. You lost everything and kept going. You worked yourself to exhaustion to keep us housed. You might have been cruel, but you were also unstoppable. I inherited that. So I taught you something valuable after all. You taught me lots of valuable things, Mom. Most of them unintentionally, but still valuable. She laughed, the sound carrying across the garden. My greatest parenting success was failing so spectacularly that you learned what not to do. You're succeeding now. That matters too. Does it? Can 6 months of growth erase 29 years of damage? No, but it can create something new alongside the damage. Scar tissue is stronger than regular tissue, Mom. Our relationship might be scarred, but it's also stronger because we're choosing it now consciously instead of just inheriting it. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. The new company's first major client had signed. 50 hospitals wanting our diagnostic platform. I showed my mother the message. 50 hospitals. Zoe, that's incredible. Want to come to the launch party? Meet my team. You want me there? I want you there. The real you, not the performance version. My complicated, healing, trying her best mother. I'll be there. Front row telling everyone that's my daughter up there changing the world. Just a few years ago, you were telling everyone I was doing temp work. I was protecting my ego with lies. Now I protect my heart with truth. It's much healthier. A car pulled up, and James emerged with his husband Paul and their adopted daughter. They'd moved from Seattle 2 months ago, drawn back by the gravitational pull of our healing family. "Sorry we're late," James called. "Traffic was brutal." "You're just in time for dessert," Mom called back, already moving toward the door. "I made your favorite." As she passed, she squeezed my shoulder. "Thank you, Zoe." "For what?" "For being too stubborn to let me win. For becoming yourself despite my best efforts to stop you. For buying this house and forcing me to see what I'd been missing." She paused in the doorway. "For teaching me that calling someone a failure says more about the person speaking than the person they're describing." "I love you too, Mom." She smiled, that real smile that had been so rare in my childhood. The daughter I called a failure for 29 years just told me she loves me after everything I did. You know what that makes me? The luckiest failure in the world. You're not a failure, Mom. No, I'm not. Neither are you. We're both just humans who got lost for a while and found our way back to each other. That's not failure. That's life. She went inside to serve dessert, leaving me on the swing as stars emerged overhead. The girl who'd been called a failure was now worth millions, but the real treasure was this, a complicated, imperfect healing relationship with the woman who'd hurt me most and loved me worst, and was learning finally to do better. The roses released their fragrance into the evening air, And I thought about cycles, about patterns, about how pain passes through generations until someone is brave enough to break the chain. My mother had called me a failure. Her father had called her one, and probably his parents before him. But it would end with us. The Margaret Foundation would ensure other mothers and daughters didn't lose each other to pride and fear and misplaced dreams. My phone rang. My mother calling from inside the house. "Zoe, could you come help with dessert? I want to show you something." I found her in the kitchen holding a cake decorated with the words, "My daughter the CEO," in careful frosting letters. "I've been practicing," she said shyly. "I wanted it to be perfect." "It is perfect, Mom." "No, it's a little lopsided, the frosting isn't quite even, and I spelled entrepreneur wrong the first time. But it's made with love, and that's what matters, right?" "That's all that matters." As we served cake to the family, my mother told the story of throwing away my gift, of calling me a failure, of nearly losing me forever. She told it without flinching, owning every cruel word, every mistake. Then she told them about the house, the restoration, the second chance she never thought she'd get. "Some of you might think Zoe saved me with this house," she concluded. "But you'd be wrong. She saved me by refusing to become what I said she was. She saved me by succeeding despite my failures as a mother. She saved me by showing me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be worth fighting for." Later, as everyone was leaving, Jennifer pulled me aside. "You did an amazing thing giving her this house." "I did a necessary thing. She deserved better than that apartment." "No, I mean forgiving her. That's the amazing thing." "I haven't fully forgiven her. I don't know if I ever will completely. But I've chosen to move forward with her instead of staying stuck in the past. That's even more amazing. Forgiveness might be divine, but choosing to heal together, that's human. That's harder." As the house emptied and quiet returned, my mother and I cleaned up together, moving around her dream kitchen with easy synchronization. This woman who'd called me a failure for decades now kept my Forbes article magnetized to her refrigerator. The mother who'd dismissed my dreams now asked for updates on my new company every day. The person who'd hurt me most had become one of my biggest supporters. "Stay tonight," she asked, as I dried the last dish. "Your room is always ready." My room. She'd insisted on keeping one bedroom just for me, decorated with my achievements, framed patents, team photos, the acceptance letter to Ohio State she'd once dismissed as worthless. "I have a meeting at 8 tomorrow. I'll make breakfast. Real breakfast, not that protein bar nonsense you call food." "Mom, please, I missed so many breakfasts. Let me make some up." So I stayed sleeping in the room that proved I belonged here in this house, bought with success she'd said I'd never achieve. In the morning, she made pancakes shaped like computers, laughing at her own silliness, and I ate every bite. Before I left, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it later, when you're alone." During my drive back to Columbus, I pulled over to read it. Inside was a check for $500, every penny of her savings, and a note. "For your new company. I know you don't need it, but I need to invest in you the way I should have from the beginning. This isn't about money. It's about believing in my daughter's dreams finally and completely." I called her immediately, crying too hard to speak at first. "Keep it," I managed. "Buy something frivolous. Take a trip. You've sacrificed enough." "Investing in you isn't sacrifice. It's the smartest thing I've ever done. Plus, when your company goes public, I'll be able to say I was an early investor." "Mom, $500 in a $50 million company is everything I have, and you're worth every penny and infinitely more." That night, I framed the check instead of cashing it. It hangs in my office now next to the photo from 6 months ago. My mother and me standing in front of the house, both of us crying and laughing simultaneously, her arms around me, like she'd never let go again. Visitors ask about it sometimes, the uncashed check and the expensive frame. I tell them it's worth more than any amount it represents. It's proof that people can change, that relationships can heal, that sometimes the greatest failure is giving up on someone you love. My mother was right about one thing all those years ago. I am just like my father in some ways, full of impossible dreams. But I'm also like her, too stubborn to quit, too proud to stay down, too determined to accept defeat. The combination she'd called dangerous turned out to be exactly what I needed to become who I am. She called me a failure, and in trying to prove her wrong, I became a success. But the real success isn't the money or the company or the accolades. It's the Sunday dinners in her kitchen, the morning phone calls about nothing important, the woman who hurt me most becoming one of the people I trust most. The real success is that the word failure has lost its power over both of us. We've redefined it together into something else entirely, the beginning of becoming who we were always meant to be. So to everyone watching who's been called a failure by someone they love, remember this: their words only define you if you let them. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is doubt to overcome. Sometimes the strongest relationships are the ones that have to be rebuilt from rubble. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who breaks you can also be the person who helps you discover you were never really broken at all. What dreams have you been told are impossible? What failures have you let define you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to rewrite your story. Thank you for listening to mine, for witnessing this journey from failure to fortune to forgiveness. Remember, you are not what they called you. You are what you choose to become despite it all.